When I was 10, I moved in with my dad. I didn't know anyone in the area, except for the family my dad was friends with. Single mom with 3 kids. Luckily there was a girl a couple years older than me, and we got to know each other a little over the years. We were not close, but ended up having the same friends. One night my friend Rob was hanging out with her and her younger brother. They happened to be in the house alone because her mom was at work. So the night Rob is hanging out with my friend, they get a knock on the door. My friend thought it was just their mom and answered it without thinking. Rob wasn't supposed to be there, so he took off through the window to his house down the road. He never thought twice about it. But it wasn't her mom. It was her mom's friend's sister. She was in a mental institution and was let out recently. She came in, and this is where I'm glad I don't know all the details. My friend's younger brother got away to the neighbors to call the police. The lady brutally murdered my friend, a week from Christmas. Decapitated her and left her body, naked in a bathtub, and hid her head. They had to look through the presents, and I don't know where they found it, but they did. I wasn't allowed to go to her funeral. It was Christmas Eve, and I was a freshman in high school. My family has been split up for some time, so normally we trade off Christmas Day and Christmas Eve. And this year I had come home early from my grandparents' Christmas party while everyone else was at my aunt and uncle's celebrating at another party. When I was dropped off, my cousin offered to stay with me for a few hours, yet I declined. I thought I could watch some of my new DVDs. After I got inside, I locked the door, grabbed some snacks, and started to settle down. I hadn't been home for more than 15 minutes when there was a knock at the door. I unlocked the door and opened it a crack, only to see a man standing there, dark hair, glasses, slightly overweight and dressed casually. He didn't look like much of a threat, but my stomach dropped. I shut the door and locked in as fast as I possibly could. He reached for the handle and started pounding on the door. I heard a string of profanities and the pounding stopped. I was terrified, then crawled on the floor and went towards the phone, hoping that he would not be able to see me through one of the windows. Then I heard noises. Our house had an open garage door and it led through the laundry room where the door lock was broken, and no one had bothered to fix it. Just then, I heard someone yell and I saw the man run through the window towards his car, then drove off. My uncle had gotten home just in time and scared the men off. Who knows what may have happened if he didn't get home in time. Sadly, we didn't get the plate number, and nothing came of it. But I'll never be home alone on a holiday again. A little over than 4 years ago, I moved in with my sister Ellen, who is 2 years older than me, and she got an apartment around 2010. So when she got a Christmas card the following Christmas addressed to someone named Ida, we didn't think much of it as it was probably in the person who lived there before us. One thing about the card was odd though. The only signature was a male's name and then a name of a town. That particular town is known for a mental institution for dangerous and insane criminals. There's only like 4,000 people living there. So the institution is what you tend to think of when you hear the name of that town. We brushed it off as a mistake, figuring that the person who lived there before didn't give the new address to the person that was sending the card. We had almost forgotten about it when the same thing happened the following Christmas. It was signed with the same sender and receiver as the year before. We were a little creeped out since we now know that the person living there before us was an older man who had passed away after living there for decades. We brushed it off once again. This is when things get weird. My sister got both of our parents' surnames since they didn't marry until a month after she was born. She decided to use our mom's name, which is more uncommon, and I decided to use our dad's name, which is one of the most common surnames in Sweden. This is important because next Christmas 2012, I had moved back home about 20 miles in the middle of nowhere. A couple of days before Christmas, my sister came to live with us during the holidays. The next day there was a new card in our mailbox. It had my sister's address on it, but now it was waiting for her in our dad's mailbox. That mailbox does not ever see her name on it since our mom passed away years before this. The card could not have possibly gotten there by the mailman since there was no connection between the two addresses. It had prints on the stamp that proved that it was sent in the mail. The only explanation that I can think of is whoever sent the card must have picked it up at my sister's when noticing that she wasn't home. And then somehow, probably through Facebook, figured out where she was. There's also a possibility that the card was meant for me. This was now starting to get really creepy. I'm also 100% sure that it's not one of our friends doing this. It has been going on for far too long and none of them are the type that would joke in this way. This happened to my very close family friends on Christmas Day a few years ago. This story is particularly creepy for me because I have spent a ton of time alone in their house. So this family is enjoying a stereotypical Christmas Day evening in the family home. It's winter and so it's dark early. It's a drizzly, wet, and a foggy night outside. It's a large family and the kids are all grown in their 20s and 30s, most with jobs out of state. But everyone has come home to be together for the holidays. Christmas music is playing and food is being cooked and eaten and there's a lot of laughing and talking and all of this goes on for many hours. The youngest daughter spots her dad standing in the middle of the courtyard outside in a black hooded sweatshirt. The hood is over his head, so just his mouth and chin are visible, and he's just looking inside the house. She casually calls over to her mom, who's in the kitchen to go check on Dad because it seems like he needs help with something in the yard. At this point, the mom says Dad is in the bedroom taking a nap. Mom and sister quickly come to the realization that a total stranger in a black hoodie is just staring at them. As you can imagine, the family collectively shits enough bricks to build another chimney for Santa. They proceed to alert everyone in the house, running around, checking the locks on the many sliding glass doors and windows, and then they wake up Dad. In the meantime, Black Hoodie Creep can see everyone's movements because the house is pretty much completely glass window walls. This guy continues to just stand there intentionally creepy. Except now he has a sinister smile on his face. It's obvious that he is enjoying being caught. At first the family thinks it might be a practical joke and the family members start calling out things to intimidate him. But the guy just keeps standing there smiling and not moving for a very long time. Then suddenly, he rushes up to the glass and starts pounding on it, not saying a word. His face was still obscured by the hood. He's intentionally trying to scare everyone, if not break into the house. And now the family really does call the cops. After pounding on the glass for a good while, he runs and hops the fence near the home's trash cans and heads to the neighbors' yards. The neighbors are also good friends, so the family calls them and let them know what's going on. But they never saw the black hooded man. The cops arrive in minutes and take statements. They check the neighboring homes but never found the guy. The scariest bit of the story is that they had no idea how long this guy was just standing there watching them enjoying their Christmas. I used to work at a 24-hour McDonald's during my first year of college right in the town where I grew up. Our store owners were greedy scumbags, so for our large city we were the only McDonald's staying open for Christmas. Somewhere around midnight a man came in. He was slightly overweight, his clothes kind of fit in an awkward way that's hard to describe. His pants were a bit too short and showed too much ankle. His beard was patchy and uneven and grew down his neck. You might wonder why I have such a thorough description of him. It's because he stayed in the dining room for at least 2 hours within sight of the counter, and almost every time I checked, he was staring at me. He would come to the counter at least twice to order additional small items off the value menu. After the second time I caught him staring again, and he gave me a creepy smile while he still had food in his mouth. I'm bad at hiding my facial expressions, and I'm sure I wrinkled up in a disgusting face and turned away. I told the one guy on our skeleton crew that night that the dude was creeping me out and asked him to switch with me on the front. It was a pretty dead night, so it really didn't matter where we were stationed. I asked to clean the bathrooms instead while my coworker wiped down the tables, and then we'd tackle the floor together. I started in the men's bathroom since the only guy in the place was currently at his table. I was pulling items out of the tote when I kind of noticed movement in the mirror behind me. To my horror, the creepy guy was almost fully behind me, only seconds before his hand closed on my arm. He was grinning in a way that made me feel sick right away. He pulled my upper arm in a way that made me turn around towards him. I was already screaming at the top of my lungs and I started whacking him with the first thing my fingers touched, which happened to be a bottle of glass cleaner. It seemed like it only took seconds for my coworker to burst in. The creeper dashed for the door and a minute later a car sped out of the parking lot. We called the cops, statements were taken, managers contacted. I went home early and quit soon after, as I was scared he'd show up again or try to grab me on my way to my car or even follow me home. If you enjoyed your time here, please consider leaving a like on this video and subscribe to FearLore. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the comments section below. Thank you for watching.